it's interesting. So, planet Earth. Perfect. No. Now, think about it. Maybe we've that puts to or persecute yourself. Very good. And verse 30. In verse 30.
He doesn't want the truth.
Very good. The reality is you have done so much already. Done.
As a special feature of this year's school, the baptized wives of elders and ministerial servants have been invited to forced labor in Turkmenistan. How does it work? Let's watch.
In a recent update to JW Library, some new features were added to help with doing research in the Bible. For example, pane. This is good for pane. Use this pane to enhance your personal comment at meetings. You already know the type of information you're looking for. So whenever you do research, start with 1986 to ensure that you have up-to-date and accurate information.
Make love door to door.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake, and welcome to Sunday Service. I'm a former Jehovah's Witness current live streamer who had a new intro song that I put effort into making, and then it disappeared, guys. This is a stream that we like to call Shaking the Cobwebs Off. I have been sick for like the last 2 weeks. I've missed so much stuff in the world of Jehovah's Witnesses, my old religion, and usually every week on Sundays I like to check in, see what's going on, see what's happening with the cults that I grew up in. Much of my chat are former Jehovah's Witnesses as well, or, you know, ex-Mormons, ex-Scientologists, and the like. And those who just like to, you know, just kind of peep in on the freak show that we got going on here in the ex-cult community. Now, I'm upset here because my intention, and I guess, really, there's no other way to say it. I'm about to complain about YouTube.
Oh, happy day. All worldly complaining about YouTube.
I really wanted to come back in a big way in 2025, and immediately I got sick and haven't been able to do any of the big things I wanted to do. I haven't been able to do like the big research project video that I've been working on for a while. Haven't made a ton of progress on that, so I've been working on some smaller stuff to fill in the gaps that I've got recorded. But one of the things I want to do on this channel is kind of refresh some of the running gags every year. There are some things that I want to remain the same, like the little sound drops. For instance, a lot of times, this is a live stream, this is a live show. It's kind of a hangout. There's an agenda, there's news we're going to get to, but there's also a lot of rambling, and there's a lot of tangents, and sometimes this is a live show, anything can happen. Sometimes I just got to take a drink of water.
My church had been giving me ass to drink, but now I was freely receiving, the water of life.
So there you go. That's the kind of, and during that time, what did I do? I took a sip of water. Now, we're also hearing probably Bo in the background. We're hearing Bo be an absolute monster. He's our tiny cat. Let's see if we can get Bo to, hang on, I've got this annoying layout. Come here, buddy. Hey, somebody gifted a membership. What a great thing, because members have an exclusive video that they can watch right now that I put up last night. Or should I say at 4 o'clock in the morning? Hey, this is Bo. Bo, can you get on camera just a little bit? Come here. Show your face. It's so very cute. I'm wary of... There's the man. There's the man. Okay. That's exciting when the pet shows up, because that means that we get to play the pet sound drop.
Our spiritual paradise is a place that has many harmless animals.
Now, what do we mean by this?
And yeah, what we mean by that is that I just have a little theme song that I play when my pet comes on sometimes. And so I've got some other sound drops that I made, and one thing that I want to refresh is like the... for example, I didn't mean to play that, or I didn't want to play that Jacob Rumpf, like, awkward silent supercut, because, we did that last year. We need a new awkward silent supercut for silences. And so I've got a pretty ridiculous one that I've been working on that can serve as our interstitial music. I've had a few running gag songs that I use in videos, like this Kirby song, when I have them start talking really fast and listing things that I'll use. For this kind of like dodo edit thing, I use this like goofy music from Luigi's Mansion. Hey, buddy. For Toad. It's just like a goofy song. But I wanna update that stuff every year. Kind of keep the bits fresh. That's not that important. We got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the witness world. So sorry for all the rambling up top. I've been feeling out of sorts. It's not the flu, it's not COVID, but it's something akin to that. So got started on antibiotic. Finally have some energy back, but yeah, definitely a little slower. And one thing, for example, that I wanted to do was a lot more research into a case that's going on in Washington right now. There is a grand jury investigation happening in Pennsylvania. And so hang on a second. I am mixing my news stories. Let me go to my community page here, because I posted about this. Okay. This is what I want to watch with y'all today. There's been some updates in Pennsylvania. There's a grand jury case happening in Pennsylvania. But there's also been an update to stuff happening in Washington. Washington, they've been trying to pass mandatory reporting. They just don't have any mandatory reporting laws at all there. So that's what's going on there. They had a hearing. There were a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses there, and I heard it was amazing. I haven't had a chance to watch this yet, and I figured it would be great to react to it with all of you guys. So that's a thing we're going to do. We're going to check in with Norway. Jan Fröde Nilsen, the Norwegian activist there, provided a lot of updates. Watchtower is getting absolutely spanked over there. The Norwegian government is having none of it. So that's actually kind of good news, which is awesome. The other thing, and not a lot of people know about, because generally speaking, I mean, macro view of the whole planet, not that many people know about this channel, or my second live stream channel, although there is sometimes live streaming there. I have a channel mainly for live streaming, the Sunday Service channel. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to that. I'm kind of simultaneously broadcasting this on Alt-Worldly, but then is going to go away and it'll be deleted from the internet, and you will have simply no choice, viewer, but to go, and I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you. It's amazing. You go to the channel, the Alt-Worldly channel, and you click on the little links right up top where the information is. You can see the Patreon. There's 3 more links. One is for the YouTube Poop channel, which, believe me, will be probably getting a lot of focus this year. System Failure, my non-JW video essay channel, and live streams for Sunday Service. So this, it apparently really messes up the whole algorithm if you're doing a bunch of live streaming and video essay content. If you're doing a bunch of 3-hour live streams and a bunch of 20-minute YouTube video essays and a bunch of 2-minute YouTube poops, then you're screwed, okay? Hey, wait a minute. Did go to a memorial high as a kite once. That's very exciting. Very, very exciting news. Yeah, I want to hear what the most blasphemous thing someone's done in a Kingdom Hall. For me, it's probably... no, I would have to think about that. I was always really afraid of doing anything bad in a Kingdom Hall. Jenny B is a part of the Little Flock. This is one of the most important days in the history of the stream. Any day that somebody becomes a member or a patron is one of the most important days in the history of the stream, by the way. So, in fact, I think before we get into the video content with the Washington thing, let's do the Reddit stuff first, and then we'll delete this just to give people time to filter in and figure out what's going on, and then from there, we'll eradicate the Alt-Worldly stream. It will be permanently obliterated from the face of the earth. It will never exist again, and it will be exclusively on the Small Worldly channel. How do you like this energy? One thing that I will say, when I'm sick, there's a few voices that I get to do a lot better. And me and Christina, since we've just been sick in bed, have been rewatching Mad Men for the millionth time. And one person who I love doing his accent is Lane Price. Lane Price, by the actor Jared Harris, I believe. I do truly enjoy doing his voice, and he's also in the television show Chernobyl. And when I have a bit of a raspy voice, I can do his voice a little bit better.
And the other voice I do enjoy doing, and I can do a lot better when I have a bit of a cold, is Chris Martin from Codeplay. And I guess by extension, I also managed to do a decent Jeffrey Jackson when I have this sort of code as well.
That was a little messy. That was a little sloppy. So only on Small Worldly soon. It's true. It's true. It's going to be happening. Anybody who's anybody goes over to Small Worldly. They know what's up. Oh, okay, wait. Last bit of channel business. I'm going to be doing the call-in show. I swear to God. I just have to... the stars have to align for it. And I've been feeling sick. I haven't had much of a voice at all. And I like to have guests and everything. And so it just hasn't worked out so far. But definitely going to start getting into the swing of it. Hopefully this Thursday. And hopefully it will be with Natalie from the Scientology channel. You can check out, I guessed it on her channel. Whatever. Okay. So stay tuned. Thursday, hopefully I'll finally do the freaking call-in show. It'll be revamped and have a theme song. Then again, I thought this stream was going to have a new theme song too, but that didn't end up happening. Okay, so what do we want to do here? I want to find the Jan Fru Nilsen posts. Let's see here. Why can't I find my boy? I know what I need to do. Okay. How nice we got Bo really hanging out. Oh, did the Groundhog Day thing happen? Here's a question. What's everybody's favorite Groundhog Day movie that is not Groundhog Day? Because I love the movie Groundhog Day. It's probably one of my favorite movies. I've seen it a million times, but I also just enjoy the stuck in the same day format, and I really like I really like Palm Springs. That's a recent one that came out like right at the start of COVID. I watched that movie like 5 times over the course of COVID. It's really great. It's I mean, I guess like Groundhog Day, it's also a romantic comedy, but it's really funny. Edge of Tomorrow, constantly on my watch list. There's no excuse for why I haven't seen it. Okay. Anyway, people are caught off guard by the Lane Price accent. It's really quite exciting, isn't it? Okay. So, JW versus Norway. Segment shall begin. Let's catch up with what's been going on in Norway, where Jehovah's Witnesses, as most of our viewers will know, were recently defunded because their shunning practices were deemed a violation of human rights. Their official religious status was stripped. So basically, they're not banned or anything. It's not like in Russia or China where they have to be secretive because they might actually be imprisoned. It's not like that. It's just they broke the law. So they no longer get free money from the government, and they can't officially perform marriages in kingdom halls anymore. You have to, get your thing at the courthouse. But it doesn't even really change that much because you can still totally do a ceremony at the kingdom hall. It's just you will also have to separately do a legal component of it elsewhere, which a lot of countries have to do anyway. Sorry, I just realized like most of my buttons on my shirt were unbuttoned, so I'm compulsively doing that. And so that's where Norway's been. And Jehovah's Witnesses, the leadership and the lawyers have been vociferously fighting this. They really don't want the precedent to be set that people can hold them to account. And it's a pretty ironclad case. Jehovah's Witnesses do, in fact, shun members. You can get baptized when you are a little kid. They encourage you to do it. And once you are baptized, you are locked in to a social contract that has binding consequences, up to and including your own family shunning you for the rest of your life if you decide that you don't want to be a witness just of your own free will, just for conscientious reasons, not because of sin. So it's pretty bad. And it's pretty obvious. So Norway's been doing a good job, and witnesses have been doing a very bad job. They scrambled to change a few things, to kind of nominally change a few things, changing the name from disfellowshipping to removing, because now the word disfellowshipping, I don't know, I guess they can't feel like they can weasel out of it anymore. I think because they didn't call it excommunication, and because they didn't just call it the shunning practice, they called it disfellowshipping. It was almost like, well, this is our own word. So when we go to court, we can define it in a sneaky way that the courts don't really know what we're talking about. But they've produced so much content explaining exactly what disfellowshipping is that the secular governments were able to come in and very easily show, no, this is how disfellowshipping works within the organization. It's not a personal choice. It's not a conscience matter. This is a mandated thing. This is how it works. And so I think that term, disfellowshipping, no longer had any use for them. And so now they've changed it to removal. I don't know why they think that's better because, yeah, you're removed from the congregation. Anyway, so they've tried to shuffle around the deck chairs in the Titanic and change the draperies, but they're not actually changing the policy itself, just very minor things. One of which is that they're going to be disfellowshipping minors less often or less frequently than they used to, because that's what they say they're going to do. They don't really have anything officially in writing yet. We don't have an updated Shepherd the Flock of God book. It's unclear to me whether they're going to even release an updated Shepherd the Flock of God book after all of this legal trouble they've been in, where previous versions of the Shepherd book are able to be used against them. So we don't really even know in practice how much is going to be different. That was all just preamble and set up for context. We're connoisseurs of context on this channel, much like the Blank Check podcast. Okay. So Jan Fröde Nilsen, who we've had on this channel before, one of the Norwegian activists spearheading this thing, and has since gotten into politics himself in Norway, and Watchtower has used Jan's own father against him in this litigation. It's really ugly and messy, but he kind of did this AMA thing. Court is set for February 3rd. That's tomorrow, by the way. So ask your questions here. And so there were some really good questions that people asked, and he answered them. I figured we'd just kind of go through them here, because we've been following this, so for posterity. Okay. If they lose for the second time, can they make an appeal again? They mean if Watchtower lose for a second time. If yes, I think it will come before the highest court in Europe, and it might cause a domino effect. It would be foolish to do so because other countries might follow Norway's decision, right? And Jan says, after they lose in the appeals court, the final step in Norway is the Supreme Court. There's two levels there. First, they will need to convince the Supreme Court to accept the case. Then the real hearing will be scheduled if it is accepted. After all the options in Norway are done, they can and will appeal this to the ECHR. Is that the European Court of Human Rights, I think, in Strasbourg? ECHR may or may not choose to accept the case. Which, if this is... Watchtower has like a pretty good track record in the European Court of Human Rights. They don't always win, but they win a lot of cases there. If they lose in ECHR... this will be all over. 2029-ish. Oh my god, that's not a real year. If they win in ECHR, then the case will go back to start for a new consideration in Norway. Even a win for Watchtower in ECHR doesn't mean they get their funding back. It could just mean that Norway needs to make a better worded law or a better worded decision. So yeah, the end is not just around the corner. Beautiful. So this is... I love it. I love it. So they've really got Watchtower in a bind here, and it really sounds like it's not something that's going to be able to be undone very easily. So somebody asks him, well, sorry, that's not the right one, but he says he feels pretty confident. It's a race between this and Armageddon. Needs patience, but time will show what comes first. Watchtower's final defeat or ours by extermination. Damn. Dropping bars. Okay. This is just a good clarification of what's going on here. PMQ Elder asks, although I've been following this for a while, I'm still not entirely sure what exactly is being discussed in court. Is it only about how minors are treated after being disfellowshipped, or does it also involve adults? Are issues like child abuse, the blood ban, and higher education also part of the case? Is the Elder book mentioned, and why does the two-witness rule apply to child abuse, but for two adults sleeping in the same house and mere suspicions enough? Is this trial just about money for the organization, or is there much more at stake here? A domino effect. Jan says they lost funding on 2 points. The right to leave a religion without punishment is a demand for how the funding is based on numbers. 2, undue pressure against minors. Under there lays shunning, marking, reproval, judicial committees, etc. against those under 18. So technically no other issues are involved, but shunning is part of both of these points. Watchtower lost the funding and their legal registration that gives them matrimonial privilege, so it's mostly about money, but it's also a hard blow against the reputation. Watchtower cannot live with this blow. So the right to leave a religion without punishment. I think that makes it really clear to me that shunning is a smart way to, if you can find a way to hold that legally to account, this is a really smart way to do it. It conflicts with a basic, what just seems to be a basic human right, and I believe it is in like the United Nations Manifesto of Human Rights or whatever it is, which I'm sure Watchtower considers to be a satanic document, that you should have the right to leave your religion freely without any consequence. Some countries were allegedly founded on religious freedom, so it's something that people take seriously. And shunning is the reason why things like the blood issue and all this other stuff are so dangerous. Like, even down to the CSA stuff. The shunning plays into that. It plays into the literal culture of silence, where abuse victims, usually young women, are perhaps likely to be labeled as young Jezebels or harlots, or as asking for it in some way, and they have historically been disfellowshipped or removed for sinning when really they were raped or sexually assaulted. And that all plays into shunning, because then once they're disfellowshipped and the congregation has no contact with them, perhaps even their family, then the person who was abused is treated like a pariah. They don't have a voice. They maybe have to go to the court. And then we see how Watchtower treats people once they go to court. They lie and gaslight about their beliefs that they just write down in black and white ink in film on purpose and put on their website. Ugh, okay. There was one more thing that I thought was interesting about this. I think it's because his dad is going to be involved in this. Hey, Oh, I know. He's being really cute.
I was going to say, what's black and white and red all over? The Revelation book.
Whoa! I don't know if that picked up on Mike. Christina said, what's black and white and red all over? The Revelation book. Pretty good.
I'll be here all week. It's fine.
So this is a really heavy one. I won't read all this out loud because it's his story to share. But if you look up Fröde commode on r/ExJW, or if you just search Norway in the search bar there and sort by newest, just look at his last few posts. They're really, really great and very personal, especially that post about having to essentially face his own dad in court. But now, let us get to that old Washington thing, the name of which I always forget. What is it? Posts.
They're implementing another work plan.
Oh my god.
Don't they have better ways to waste
Advertisements. No. Okay. Hold, please. I need to pull this video back up. Ooh, maybe in the meantime... What can I do in the meantime? Alright, because we're going to kick people off here. Okay, we're going to kick people off of the alt-worldly stream. It's going to cease to exist because we need to get Small Worldly up to 1,000 subscribers, or they repo my car. That's just how it happens. If we don't get 1,000 subscribers on the Small Worldly channel before Friday, they repossess our car and Sleepy Kirby. It may be Bo, but sometimes we kind of wish someone would repo him. Rebo. Okay. But to take us out here, before I nuke, I'm going to... Wait, what? Still no YouTube Plus? I've got it on my system failure account. Now, I'm going to show a little bit of this goofy video that I uploaded for Patrons. That's what I'll do. You can see a little bit of a silly edit I made. Hey, wait a minute. That was the fucking thing. What? This is my new song. Oh, I've really made many mistakes. Many mistakes have been made and are currently being made right now. How did I mess that up so bad? Now look out, because I think the beginning of this is so loud. Like the new channel intro, I think I mixed it way too loud. That's going to be the new channel intro for this year. We've moved to Wario World on from Luigi's Mansion. Maybe I should have had people guess what game that's from. Might have been a fun game. Hard to say. Now it's gone. All right, we're going to nuke Alt Worldly and go to Small Worldly. I'm going to get some more water. We'll be right.
Well, I'd like to tell you, very briefly, 2 sad stories. Now, here's sad story number 1. Do you remember Jehovah? He was one of the best. The young king Jehoash, him be a good king, but old Jehoiada, bad king.
That's sad story number 1.
On its heels, we have sad story number 2. You remember that the Apostle John died.
No. You gotta pay to hear sad story number 2. And the rest. Okay, here we are. All right, cool people. Now we can finally talk about what's going on in Washington. Let's just share my screeny.
Our last bill, for folks in the room, we're getting to you, I promise. Here we go. So this is Senate Bill 5375 concerning the duty of clergy to report child abuse and neglect. And I see Allison Mendiola coming up to staff the bill, and then we will hear from Senator Frame.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Allison Mendiola, committee staff. Before you is Senate Bill 5375, sponsored by Senator Frame, as you mentioned. Mandatory reporting laws require people in specific jobs or professions to report child abuse or neglect or cause a report to be made to DCYF or the proper law enforcement agency. Some examples of mandated reporters include employees of DCYF, DSHS, and certain personnel within Department of Corrections, law enforcement officers, health practitioners, professional school personnel, administrative, academic, or athletic department employees, or student employees at institutions of higher learning, and any adult who has reasonable cause to believe that a child who resides with them has suffered severe abuse. A full list is provided in your bill report. Any other person who has reason to believe child...
Sorry, I had to blow my nose. All right, we're learning about the bill, though. Connoisseurs of context.
Abuse or neglect has occurred may report this information. No one is required to report child abuse or neglect when the information is obtained solely as a result of a privileged communication that would not compel that person to testify as a witness in any action or proceeding. For example, a member of the clergy, a Christian Science practitioner listed in the Christian Science Journal, or a priest shall not, without the consent of the person making the confession or sacred confidence, be examined as to any confession or sacred confidence made to him or her in their professional character, in the course of discipline enjoined by the church to which he or she belongs. Mandated reporters.
So basically, I mean, if I'm following this, they're saying that there's just no mandatory reporting standards at all right now. Because I might skip to the testimony if that is the gist of it.
also has another role, such as they're a teacher. Are they currently mandated to report under that role, or?
Yes.
Any other questions?
So so teachers are mandatory reporters, but not priests? So if a member of the clergy also has another role, such as a teacher, are they currently mandated?
Yes.
Okay. That's so bizarre.
Any other questions?
This is how like laws can become so labyrinthine and full of weird holes and loopholes. Other holes, presumably.
Seeing none, Senator Fröde.
Sorry for saying
Thank you,
holes
Madam
so
Chair.
much.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Allison, for that excellent briefing, as always. For the record, I'm Noelle Frame, State Senator from the 36th District. As you all may remember, for those who've been following this bill for the last several years, this legislation first came about a couple of years ago after reporting from Investigate West into a cover up in a particular religious community in Washington State, the Jehovah's Witness community in particular, who had been covering up sexual abuse of children for years. In part because we did not have a mandated reporter law here in Washington State that was about the only thing that would have forced those local leaders to report rather than sending that information up to their national hierarchy to then be covered up.
That, just like that right there, a Jehovah's Witness hearing that would just think that that's a satanic lie. They would just immediately assume that's impossible. There is no way that there is a pattern of not reporting abuse, because the leadership insists to its members that they follow all secular laws, but they just don't, because if they did, they wouldn't be constantly going to court. It's the old liar, liar, stop breaking the law, asshole meme.
That was what brought this forward in the last couple of years. I will say that the bill fell apart last year after the revelation that three separate archdioceses of the Catholic Church were being investigated, which was not able to be corroborated until after legislative session last year, but that became public. And quite frankly, it made it hard for me at a personal level to stomach any argument about religious freedom being more important than preventing the abuse, including the sexual abuse of children.
Who is this person? She's great and correct. I don't even understand this. The bill fell apart because there were Catholics being investigated. I mean, that seems like the exact opposite of how that should work. Like, that seems to underline the fact that there is a huge problem. It should expedite things.
Because everybody that's been following this bill knows that this one is personal for me as a survivor of sexual abuse myself. And
Good point here from Chandler, that even when they know it's not a lie, they will rationalize. And that's exactly right. If you ever start arguing with Jehovah's Witnesses who sometimes will come in the live chat if they get bold, not too often, but there was a while where we had like one a week. There'd be a one brave soul. But that's the other thing. If you talk to Jehovah's Witnesses online or just your own family, I experienced this trying to talk to all of my Jehovah's Witness family and friends, and I was trying to explain to them why I could no longer be a Jehovah's Witness. They just do that thing where they're like, there's no way that's happening. And if it is happening, then it's not happening the way you say it is. And if it is, then it's not that bad. And if it is that bad, then Jehovah knows about it and he'll do something about it eventually. Because everybody else does it, so that's no excuse to leave, because we never said we were perfect. So it's like, on one hand, this is God's one true organization. You can't leave, because you will be destroyed in Armageddon if you willfully reject the truth. On the other hand, no, everybody's imperfect. We're not special, and the governing body can make mistakes, and you can't avoid CSA in this day and age. It's just going to happen. So why are you complaining about it? Why? They're doing it too, Dad. Mom, he's doing it too. So that's their argument, is they did it first, so we should be able to also do it.
and abuse had only stopped when I told a mandated reporter, which was a teacher. So I have tried really hard over the last couple of years to find a balance and to strike a careful compromise. And I'm just here to say
This is one of our lawmakers. Can someone give, maybe I missed it, but if someone knows who this is, let me know.
find a balance and to strike a careful compromise. And I'm just here to say, for those who I've tried to work with, I'm really sorry that I don't feel like I can make a compromise for you anymore. And I stand by the bill with no exemption. I believe we've gotten to the point, this bill's been in consideration in some way, shape, or form for 20 years. And I really wonder about all the children who have been abused and neglected and have gone unprotected by the adults in their lives because we didn't have a mandated reporter law. And that we continue to try to protect this in the name of religious freedom. So the bill before us says that if you're a member of the clergy, that you have to report child abuse and neglect when you learn about it, no matter the scenario in which you obtain that information. I want to reiterate, similar to the last two versions of this bill, nothing in this bill changes clergy penitent privilege for the point of prosecution. That's not the point of this bill. This bill doesn't attempt to change that. It is merely so that clergy will go to authorities and ask them to check on that kid and find out if they are being abused or neglected, as the report would indicate. Because at the end of the day, it's just about us being able to have children know that they can trust adults in their lives, particularly members of the clergy that have really important and intimate relationships with these families.
Seems so common sense. It seems so common sense. And God, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Like when you hear it all laid out, there's just no excuse for why we shouldn't have this. But the reason why is the reason why we don't have a lot of things is because churches have lobbyists, essentially. Like the Catholic Church has their lobbyists. Jehovah's Witnesses understands lawfare. They do it all the time. They're doing it against Mark O'Donnell right now, for Pete's sake, for Mark's sake, we should say, out of respect. So, yeah, I agree. Anybody fighting this should immediately be suspect. But, I mean, look through the voting records in your state. Go through it, just like, look it up, because it's interesting. You can look up whether or not your state has mandatory reporting laws. If they don't, have they come up for a vote before? Who has voted against it? A lot of times, it's not even necessarily always Republicans, but if it's a politician with a base, like their constituency is largely Christian as they perceive it, or they themselves are a Catholic or whatever religion it is. Obviously not going to be a witness. They're not going to be in government. But there's a lot of Catholics in the United States of America on all, in all political parties. And so it's the same reason why we can't get common sense gun laws passed. No, kids should be able to go to school knowing they won't be slaughtered by guns. Very common sense. We have licenses on a lot of things. I got to renew my license right now because even though I'm legally of age to own a car, I had to pass a driver's test. I had to be able to demonstrate that I have knowledge of how to use this thing. I had to get a license and maintain a license, and that license can be taken away if I mess up, right? Well, we don't have that with guns because we have a lot of gun lobbyists. And it's the same way with child sexual abuse and mandatory reporting. It's common sense. We just need to be able to hold people to account. But you have enough lobbyists who are like, no, this is a slippery slope. If you regulate this one thing, it will cause the collapse of freedom as we know it in our society. And as a result, a bunch of kids have to endure the consequences, or not, or just
and kids need to be
die.
able to count on those adults to protect them. Last count, we were only one of 5 states left in the country that did not have such a mandated reporter requirement for clergy as clergy. Thank you, Senator Christian, for that great question. You're exactly right that if they're serving as teachers, they are already mandated reporters. But this bill is about for the role of clergy in and of itself. We are one of only 5 states in the nation that does not require clergy to report. So with that, Madam Chair, I know this is going to be a challenging conversation for not only members of the audience, but members of the public and members of this committee. But I wanted to share a little bit of my own personal journey and why I brought forward this version of the bill this year. Happy to take questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any questions for the prime sponsor, Senator Warnick?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Freeman.
Well, yeah, of course. Like, nobody is okay. Like, this is the disagreement. I believe in a pluralistic world, right? I believe that Jehovah's Witnesses should have the full rights of every other religion and the Catholic Church. I hate all religions equally. I don't believe that any of them are true, but I believe in freedom of speech, and I believe in freedom of worship. I believe in freedom generally. In order to have that, you have to be able to make sure that your freedoms aren't infringing on anybody else's freedoms, right? So there has to be some willingness to compromise and to be able to say, okay, well, once this crosses over into harm, we have to be able to have there be consequences to make sure that this harmful thing doesn't keep happening. But like, I'm an atheist who wants religion to exist. I'm perfectly happy with it. I don't even think you could make a world without religion, first of all. That's not really here or there. But religious people do not feel that way. They don't want a world with people like me. They don't think that I should have a right to exist as an atheist. They think I'm going to be killed in Armageddon. Jehovah's Witnesses, right? And a lot of groups like them, including groups like the Catholic Church, who would go to the bat consistently to fight for their right to not report pedophilia to the police. So, like, groups who are bad faith actors, they can allow no compromise. Like, in the same way that the NRA, their entire existence is set up against allowing any kind of legislation to legislate guns in the United States. It's just, in the same way, there are a million religious lobbyists that are set up to try and ensure that priests and religious leaders have so much more protections than average citizens. Like, so many loopholes, so many things that they don't have to do just so they can keep their little Christian-y, creepy, culty bullshit things intact. They think human rights is antithetical to theirs, because they, like, on a fundamental level, these religions, they don't believe in pluralism. They don't believe in equality. They don't believe that all people were created equal. They believe that they believe in divine hierarchies, and they're at the top of it. They think that they believe in, like, a supremacist structure. Witnesses are the chosen ones. They are better than everyone else. Their way of life is better than everyone else because it's not theirs. It's God's. It's Jehovah's way of life. And they're just the vessels for this. So anybody who would dare cause them to adjust even slightly is doing something that's an affront to God. And it's, it's completely ridiculous, but this is what makes it so difficult to regulate religions, from what I can tell, is that most people with a brain and a heart doesn't want all religions to just be eradicated from the face of the earth. They just want to make sure that you can't do harm on the taxpayer's dime. But the religions do want to make sure that they can do that.
My question is the difference between this bill, you called it a version. So what is the difference between this one and the one that came through last year or 2 years ago?
Great question, Senator Warnick. So I'll go back 2 years and say the very first version of this bill had a full exemption for any information learned in context of clergy penitent privilege. In the Catholic context, this is confession. The first version of the bill I brought forward 2 years ago had a full exemption the advice that I had been given was, this was the reason the bill died 20 years ago. You're never going to win if you don't have the full exemption. So that is the bill I brought forward. We passed that out of the Senate. It went over to the House. The House committee stripped out that exemption, and it went to a full floor debate. And I will say it was one of the best floor debates I've ever seen in my life. And I want to thank Senator Christian for your very righteous position in that floor debate 2 years ago. There's a reason I like working with you, sir. And it has everything to do with that floor debate 2 years ago. When that bill came back to the Senate on concurrence, we did not have the votes. I will just note it was not partisan. It was a split vote on both sides of the aisle. And the bill failed on concurrence, a rare occasion in the legislative process, and it happened with this one. That was the version of the bill 2 years ago. Last year, Senator...
A real contrast in like the way different countries' governments work and are therefore differently able to hold Jehovah's Witnesses to account. In 2 years, the state of Washington has been at a stalemate because of all this, all these little bits of red tape they have to get around and negotiating with the various parties. And we got to get in this section, let's take out this and rewrite the bill and reconvene and all this stuff. In 2 years, Norway was essentially able to like create a new law that would be able to hold religions to account in the first place, and then start the process of defunding Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, to get political for a second, mostly just so I can play my sound drop.
It's difficult not to take sides in politics. It's very difficult because we are aware of the issues.
Like, I think a huge issue in the United States, one that I don't necessarily see going away anytime soon, is that the government and the institutions, especially like courts and Senate in passing legislation and stuff, it's not responsive. Like, you can't really be responsive super quickly because there's just layers of bureaucracy. And so yeah, it's just different. That's why like there's been investigations in Australia and New Zealand and England and Wales, and they all take a totally different shape. And what's happening in Norway is so much more sweeping than what we've seen in other countries, and then in what we would be likely to see in the United States. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't really have any profound point about this other than I just find it kind of interesting watching these two things play out side by side on different sides of the world, and just how much slower my country is at doing stuff like this.
I tried to find a way, and I had a carefully crafted exemption that I worked with the Catholic Archdiocese Catholic Conference on that said clergy must be mandated reporters, even with information that they had learned in part from penitent clergy privilege, essentially, in a penitential context, I think is the actual phrase we had in the bill. And I believe the Catholic Conference was neutral on that because it was not obtained solely in the context of penitential communication, but potentially in part, so that the concept there was that if clergy kind of had a suspicion and then they learned about something in penitential communication that really confirmed that suspicion for them, that they could then report it and not be violating sort of the sanctity of the penitential communication context. And the Catholic Conference was neutral on that. When that bill got to the
I'm feeling
House,
better, but I've had to take a couple
from some of the very
nose
same
blow breaks.
survivors that we are about to hear from today. And it became delightful.
We're going to get to some testimony. Maybe we can skip ahead a little bit. Let's see.
First panel in person, and that would be Sharon Hewling, Mary Dispenza, and Kirsten Larson. And while they're getting seated to be ready remotely, Reverend James Connell, Chris Dormeyer, and Ryan Dudley. All right, Sharon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Do we have 1 minute or 2 minutes?
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Madam Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Sharon Hewling. I have the privilege of speaking for the Clergy Accountability Coalition. 6 states and Guam have mandatory reporting laws that do not allow a clergy penitent privilege. To our knowledge, none of these state laws have been struck down. Washington law still maintains the Clergy Penitent Defense Protection 5375 does not force clergy to testify in court.
Is this good guy or bad guy? Do we like this person? I think this is arguing in favor of child abuse. I think this person's arguing in favor of child abuse. I'm not sure.
Guarantees the absolute
freedom
of conscience
this
in all matters.
blonde ExJW woman in the background makes some really great expressions that I've seen making the rounds on
or
like
justify
ExJW social media.
Inconsistent with the peace and safety of the state. If a state cannot regulate religions, then they should not be able to provide religions with exemptions either. State law provides assurances of the confidentiality.
Her face is great. Who is this? I sincerely hope and aspire to one day be seated in a room just like this and to be able to summon that kind of sass. I do have a hard time hiding my facial expressions.
Of the person who reports child abuse. I am Catholic. Confession is one of our sacraments.
Okay. Well, we've got our answer.
But it is not the privacy of it that makes it holy. It was made private in the 13th century in part due to a sex scandal involving priests. My church will excommunicate a good priest if he reports child sexual abuse learned of in confession, but they have excommunicated very, very few pedophile priests. The church has a solution. The Pope can change canon law if only he wants.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know. I have a hard time following these. Also, my head is full of snot, if that wasn't established. I did ask. I'll snip out the part where I sounded mean.
To be clear, the only people who have to worry about the privacy of their confession are child rapists and abusers. This bill will not affect the vast majority of Catholic confessions.
I jumped the gun. Now the words she's saying line up with what I would expect.
Child abuse. If a 7-year-old confesses that the neighbor touched him in his privates, and if a priest confesses to a priest that he's sexually abusing kids, if it is reported, the abuse will stop, but only if authorities know about it. Help lift the cloak of secrecy that has fueled our epidemic of sexual child abuse. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Mary Dispenza, the Northwest Contact for SNAP, Survivors Network of those abused by priests and nuns. I am a survivor of priest and nun abuse. I was raped by the parish priest when I was 7.
Oh, wow.
I buried the abuse. At age 18.
You know, it occurs to me, I don't know that I've seen like an older person in a hearing like this. It's really powerful.
After high school, I entered the convent and became a nun, and there the memory of my abuse surfaced. Finally, I told my confessor about the rape. He did not report this crime. The seal of confession and state law reporting exemptions gave the priest the right to not report, thus protecting the perpetrator and denying me services that could have helped me and other children. In my case, priest privilege and the seal of confession protected the perpetrator priest, who went on for 4 more decades to rape little girls. The privilege to not report did not help me or other victims. It denied me needed support and services. I carried the weight and secrecy until I was 52. Soon I will be 85, and I do not understand why any religion would want the freedom to keep child abuse secret.
When you hear it like that, truly what is the excuse? It just lays it bare for how disgusting the counter arguments are. I'm interested to hear what they're do we hear what the counter arguments are? I think so, because I know that there's we get reaction shots that I've been seeing making the rounds. I am sorry, Ron. I feel bad. I had to run and get a Coke. I still am not feeling great, and I know that I'm running on fumes. Not to use excuses. I also was supposed to call and talk with someone who could walk me through some of the finer details of how this all went down, so I could give a little bit more context. And I dropped the ball there too. So I do apologize for not having more insight into what's happening.
Sexual abuse of children and hiding it are not worthy of our protection. As lawmakers, it is your duty to make sure that our children are protected. I believe that everyone should be equal under the law. My elder wisdom says that priest privilege does not protect children. It protects predators. I urge you to vote yes on SB 5375. Thank you.
Thank you and happy almost birthday. And I'm very sorry. Very sorry.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thanks for being here today. Kirsten.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Kirsten Larson. I'm with the Clergy Accountability Project. I'm also someone who was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And I'm here in support of Senate Bill 5375. This bill is not about taking away religious freedom. It's about protecting children. Adding a confessional exception creates a loophole that high control religious groups such as Jehovah's Witnesses frequently use to avoid reporting abuse.
Okay, so this is something that, just in case there are anybody watching is wondering, like, well, what is Jehovah's Witnesses' argument against it? Like, why would a Jehovah's Witness, just ranking file person, be defensive about this? Like, why would a JW troll come in the comments and argue in favor or suggest that the government is being weaponized against Jehovah's Witnesses or something? And it's like, they truly think that the very accusation is an insult to the honor of the religion. Like, they truly feel like the very fact that you have suggested that we have this problem and that you think that we should be held to account, that is the insult to Jehovah's name, because it is simply impossible to suggest that we could be doing anything more to protect our children. Our religion is being led by Jesus Christ, so obviously everything we're doing is what Jesus wants us to be doing. It's just like, it's pure hubris that you have to ignore reality.
In the case of Jehovah's Witnesses, their policies require that elders report instances of abuse directly to their organization headquarters. They conduct their own internal investigations, keeping records from authorities. Victims of abuse are often subjected to judicial committees that are led by elders, where they're questioned in an attempt to get to the truth of an accusation. Many times victims are not believed and are even at risk of being excommunicated, while the abuser faces no consequences. As long as religious organizations can adjust their policies to require that investigations must be kept secret as part of their privilege, then they'll never have to report the abuse, and this shields predators and allows the cycle of abuse to continue. I urge you to pass Senate Bill 5375 without any exemptions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will call.
It's very cool to see, like, witnesses and Catholics, like, who experienced abuses in those systems coming together for this. And weirdly, like, when you think about it, Watchtower's lawyers and the Catholic Church's lawyers are also kind of in it together on the opposition. It's just weird to think about because as a Jehovah's Witness, we were so anti-Catholic and viewed them as the enemy, when really all of the Catholic Church's clergy mandatory reporting nonsense is like the backbone for how witnesses get away with all of this stuff.
Our next. Oh, sorry, Senator Warnick. Thanks.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question's for Sharon. I believe you're the one that I met on the sidewalk recently. You gave me a packet. I have read it. Thanks, Charlie Brown, for helping to put that together. You have a lobbyist. Anyway, I did read it. It was late last night, and I found it somewhat confusing at times. But so sometime before we exec this bill, I'd like a chance to meet with you again, if we have time. But my question, in this packet, I found nothing among the other states or any other areas that require where a priest has to divulge a communication made in a confessional. Could you give me some examples of that in writing? Maybe there is in this packet, but if you could give me some specific examples where a priest has been forced to divulge that.
Are you, clarification, ma'am? Thank you for the question. Yeah. Are you asking for?
I did not understand that question.
That compels priests, or an example of where that has actually worked?
We want to make sure if we pass a bill like this, because this is life-changing for us Catholics.
Yes, ma'am.
And if this bill has been implemented in other states, I'd like to see a written example of that. And and Mary,
life-changing for us Catholics? Like, but no, it wouldn't. Why would it be life-changing for anybody who wasn't a pedophile? It wouldn't change your life at all unless you were a creep.
I am so sorry for what happened to you. I have priests and nuns in my family, and so I have a different experience, unfortunately, or fortunately, than what you've had. But anyway, I'd sure like to see some examples of where it's worked, where a priest has been asked to divulge in other states.
Thank you. If it's okay, just to clarify, we're volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a community volunteer and not a professional. We hired Cascade Government Affairs to help us because we don't know how to run a bill. Right. We're learning every day, and thank you. I will submit that to the committee and to you, and I thank you. But can I point out a recent example?
Sure.
As recently as last January, a year ago, Father Medina in Missouri was found guilty of soliciting sex in the confessional. This month in Sacramento, not a priest, but someone who worked for the archdiocese or diocese, excuse me, was found guilty, is being investigated. I'm not sure if he's found guilty of child sexual abuse. So these things are still occurring, and we do have documentation, and I will send that your way. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like the Catholic skeptic is offended at the suggestion that there's a problem.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Christian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this is obviously a very difficult.
I'm the father to a daughter vibes.
And I spoke highly, for the bill in last year. But I guess my thoughts are: is there any way to get to a point where again, this was difficult for me, and a lot of conversations and calling my pastor and having a long talk. If there's a way to get to, we're not a mandatory, but making sure
that is so crazy to me. Calling his pastor and having a long talk, like that's something that I have to admit I didn't really think about. Even though I should, because it's a part of the movie Spotlight too. It's like, because Catholicism is such a cultural part of many people's lives in the United States, naturally there's going to be practicing Catholics who are in government and who are going to feel conflicted about stuff like this. But that's kind of crazy. If there was a Jehovah's Witness sitting senator or congressman who got legislation that was going to deal with mandatory reporting for Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were feeling all eaten up inside and was talking to the circuit overseer about it, I think our alarm bells would be going off. But I don't know.
That folks in the church have the clear right and duty, other than necessary and mandatory reporter. So, so is there, I know there's a lot of discussion on this, but the difference between being a forced mandatory reporter and ensuring that somebody has the duty or right to do it. Because I understand now, from what I understand, is the Catholic Church, you can't even, because of the church, you can't even tell if you, as a priest, is required not to tell. Is there any way we could make it so that folks could tell, let's say, and still maybe thread the needle on this bill, that we keep, our country as a whole, where the government stays out of the state's business, but yet at the same time we're protecting the children. I'd love to see if there's been more, and if there's any way to thread the needle.
Is that a question? May I address it?
It was. Has there been any research or conversation?
Is there any way that we could
do
nothing?
5375 will require priests to report, and their confidentiality is protected, isn't the word, but assured. The U.S. Bishops Conference calls on priests in America to work with law enforcement and follow local laws. But my understanding, and I'm a lay person, is that priests are excommunicated if they report. But the church has the answer. The church can change church law, and you can change state law if only the Pope, and with all due respect, we have the courage to do so. Thank you.
Could I respond?
Yes.
I think we're talking about crimes against children. And in that sense, they need to be reported, whether you are in or outside of the confessional. I think it's very simple. Crimes have been committed against children, and they need to be reported if the child is even to have the support he or she needs. And also, even a child like myself may have told it in confession, and I may not have told my mom and dad, because there's so much shame, especially in the Catholic Church. There is a lot of shame, or has been in the past, around sexuality. So it just has to be reported for the sake of the child, and for the child to get the services he or she needs, and for the parents even to eventually not disclose that to a mom and dad of a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. It's failing the child.
This woman's amazing. Like, the way she articulates it so clearly. It is simple. And it's just weird to hear them twist it up and make it sound like it's some complicated, heavy-handed thing. They really got to weigh
Thanks all three of you for
on their
being
conscience
here
and
today
as a
sharing
Catholic.
your story. I know retelling is not an easy thing to do, and really appreciate your time. Yep, thank you, and your courage. Thank you. Yes. And we've got a remote panel, Reverend James Connell, Chris Dormeyer, and Ryan Dudley. And Vice Chair, you want to call the next panel to get ready, to come up and be ready?
Yeah, so after the panel that we're about to hear from remotely on deck, all in person, and so feel free to come to the front row so you're ready to go. Jean Hill, Bishop Frank Schuster, and Teresa Shrimp.
So Reverend James Connell, are you on Zoom? If so, turn your camera on and you can begin to speak.
Glad to see that as always.
Yes, we can.
Chandler is talking about super on-topic relevant things.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Hello, I am Father James Connell. Connell. I am a Catholic priest of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. And I should note that I am here speaking as an individual person and not as an official representative of the Catholic Church. I strongly support the proposed legislation in 5375.
Yeah.
Primarily because any law that hides and protects criminals while simultaneously endangering children and vulnerable adults is an immoral law and should not be on the books. Our own Catechism of the Catholic Church supports my position. One point in particular in the Catechism,
great.
I would note, it's paragraph 2266.
Now, you know what's standing out to me right now watching this is like, can you imagine, I guarantee, I haven't seen the rest of this, I guarantee there is not going to be, hey, this is Brother James Boodly Bob from the Southburg congregation, and I'm a circuit overseer, and I just want to say that I think we should support this bill, and the elders in my congregation agree. Like, no witness would ever do this. Even if they did agree with it, they just wouldn't do it because, and if they did do it of their own volition, just called in, they would be disciplined. They would be deleted as an elder or whatever their rank and privilege was immediately.
And it says in part, legitimate public authority has the right and the duty to inflict punishment proportionate to the gravity of the offense. Hence, criminals must be held accountable for their crimes and pay their debt to society. But the police and the justice system must first know about the crime. And hiding and protecting criminals does not serve this end. There are other points, in the interest of time, I'll just say they concern the common good, telling the truth, and repairing damage done.
I don't know about that.
Thus, no valid freedom of religion argument rooted in the absence of truth can provide moral justification for avoiding punishing the criminals. I would also add, the question was raised just a moment ago concerning other states that have mandatory reporting laws, but without clergy penitent privilege. And I understand there are 6 such states: New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Texas, West Virginia, North Carolina, and Oklahoma. In addition, the territory of Guam also has such a law and no clergy penitent privilege. So I would encourage that this bill go forward and that Washington.
Very important little addendum here from Ron Pomo. Who's, by the way, we're watching this courtesy of his channel. He's been involved with this case. We've talked about it on this channel before. He says, if you can, find my last Reddit post on r/ExJW. Anyone can comment and state their support before the next hearing on Tuesday. I have done this. Anybody can fill out the forms. And yes, this guy did his homework. I really like Reverend James Connell. What strange bedfellows we make
having a mandatory reporting law, but without
in trying to hold religion to account.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Chris, are you ready to go?
Get my audio.
There you are. Good afternoon. You may begin.
Good afternoon. Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Chris Dormeyer. I respectfully ask you to vote yes for SB 5375, and here's why. I am a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 11. I am here to support our children. There is so much abuse happening in the world, If we could close the gap on this one issue, it would be a huge step in the right direction. I do not speak to just Catholic clergy, but clergy of other faiths who also think they are above the law. We are active Catholics who love our church. We have worked for change in our church since 2003, advocating for accountability for our church.
After this, I'll put these links in the description so people can follow up.
Leaders to protect minors from sex abuse and to expose the cover-up of sex abuse by church leaders. Over these many years, we have learned that the confessional exemption has been misused as a practice in which children are abused, abusers are exonerated, and religious leaders' knowledge of the abuse is kept secret. Similar cover-ups of abuse have happened in all other religious organizations, including those who do not have ordained minister, but church elders as their leaders. Thank you. And again, please vote yes for SB 5375.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. Next up, Ryan, are you with us? Hi, Ryan, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilson and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ryan Dudley, and I'm the State Policy Manager with the FFRF Action Fund, the advocacy arm of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm here today on behalf of our more than 1,800 members throughout the state of Washington to voice our support for Senate Bill 5375. From the outset, I want to make one thing clear. This bill is not about attacking religious freedoms. This bill is about being a voice for survivors of abuse when they need it the most. Without this bill, members of the clergy have free rein to withhold critical information needed to bring justice to survivors. The seal of confession must never be a barrier to justice for survivors of abuse. Absent mandating clergy members to report abuse, regardless of how they learn of it, churches will continue to impede investigations. As you've likely heard, the Seattle Archdiocese voluntarily provided the names of current and former...
Sorry, I'm just enjoying listening to this guy. I want to provide commentary, but everybody's statements are so good.
That it determined to have been credibly accused of abuse. These claims have been evaluated only by the church itself, not by an independent agency or organization. When attorneys general from other states have conducted their own investigations, some have found a dramatically greater number of credible allegations than what the church initially reported. For example, a 2023 report from the Illinois Attorney General's office listed 4 times as many substantiated child sex abusers than the Diocese of Illinois had previously disclosed. Independent investigations like the one initiated in Illinois, as well as the investigation initiated by the former Attorney General in Washington, are vital to holding churches and members of the clergy accountable. I'm urging you to pass this bill to promote full transparency and to stand up for survivors of abuse. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jean Hill, Bishop Frank Schuster, and is Teresa Schremp not present? All right.
I guess to get on my high horse for a second, this is why it's important to have a Justice Department, an independent Attorney General and a Justice Department that's able to do independent investigations. If you want a body of experts who are able to do that kind of thing, to hold religions to account. Yeah.
Jean, you want to start off?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wilson. It's good to see you in person.
Not to refer to anything in particular.
Video meetings with you, so.
Okay. Different crowd here.
Good to see you. As you can imagine, the Washington State Catholic Conference opposes the bill as written due to concerns it will have the unintended consequence of...
I like how they have to kind of throws it after all this heartfelt testimony based in simple facts and common sense, so we should protect children. She's like, yeah, we're obviously in opposition to the bill as written just because.
Washington State Catholic Conference opposes the bill as written due to concerns it will have the unintended consequence of prolonging abuse. Privileges exist to encourage communication that would otherwise...
Prolonged abuse. Have you considered that reporting the abuse... Look at her face! Oh my god. Okay. Look at our blonde iconic friend's face here.
consequence of prolonging abuse. Privileges exist to encourage communication.
Yeah. Okay. Have you thought that perhaps if you call the fire department, it will actually just prolong the fire? Because, like, what if,
That
No.
would otherwise not occur. As one
Doesn't make any
researcher
sense.
noted in 2002, if the abuser knew that the minister was required to report
Oh my
confessions to
God.
the state,
She is all of us. It's very important that she's there in this
the abuser
moment.
would not go to the clergy member for counseling, and the abuse would continue unchecked. People turn to their clergy members for help. This bill will shut that avenue for many perpetrators.
What? This is... God. Brainworm
Abuser would not
logic.
go to the clergy member for counseling, and the abuse would continue unchecked. People turn to their clergy members for help. This bill will shut that avenue
I came to you for help, not the kind of help that falls within the bounds of the law.
for many perpetrators. Mandatory reporting is not the solution. Having prosecuted educator misconduct cases for 12 years, I can tell you from
Agreed.
experience that in buildings full of
I need to
mandatory
hear
reporters, very
the
few
scoop.
make reports, despite having clear concerns about an adult's interactions with students. Many times, the subsequent abuse of a student could have been prevented with a conversation about proper boundaries with the teacher. And if you look at reports just from the last
What does this have to do with anything?
year in Vancouver, Washington, in Pierce County, of schools where abuse has continued, despite the number of mandatory reporters of buildings,
Look at them.
you'll see that it is the case today. What is needed is not more requirements to report suspicions, but mandatory.
This is what is possible when you are ontologically correct.
Support of children, so the adults
When you are
recognize signs
fighting
of
a righteous
concern and take
cause.
steps to address known behaviors long before a person finally confesses to abuse.
I love this.
Better training might also stem the tide of, as reported by NPR.
This face, just put it in every, like, JW broadcasting too, just any time Stephen Letts or Gage Flegel is saying a thing.
And ProPublica last
It'd be
year,
amazing.
an increase in reports against
Evergreen
innocent parents
reactions.
of color living in poverty. We again, as a church, have instituted mandatory reporting for all of our clergy, all of our adults in rooms
weird.
with
Then why are we
children
here?
with unsupervised
Why are we
access
here
to
then?
children. We do not require those reports in the one situation of the confessional. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You see, the confession booth has special powers. There's a special safe zone in the booth. It's magic.
Yeah,
we
Senator
can't talk
Lavore.
about the crimes
Thank you. I
that are
just- I know
talked
you
about in
have
that
a
little
lot of
box.
information. Can you clarify the statement on boundaries?
So again, I was an education attorney for 12 years, and we had to help teachers understand, if you see a teacher who's in a room, closing the door one-on-one with a student over and over again, those are boundary violations. Those are the kinds of actions that and there was a great study.
I really like them. I like them because brown-haired ExJW on the right is just quietly seething.
2002, Carol Shakeshaft.
Oh my God.
A study that the Seattle Times reported on. High school teachers in particular are not looking for high school students necessarily to abuse. Things happen.
What?
So there's a case
What?
of a-
What? What? Did she just say that high school teachers are not looking for high school students to abuse? Because that's not true. I mean, just at my high school, we had 2 teachers who did abuse high school students, like in our class.
Necessarily to abuse. Things happen to Carol Shakeshaft did a study that the Seattle Times reported on. High school teachers in particular are not looking for high school students necessarily to abuse. Things happen. So there's a case
Things
of a
happen.
coach right now in Sumner, and they're talking about him texting the kids on his basketball team all the time. Those are boundary violations. Those
What? This is like total nonsense. Texting the basketball team, that one seems like a normal boundary.
boundary violations become an issue when you have adults in the room who get into that mentality of these kids are my friends and this becomes my dating pool. When we
Yeah, this
work
is like
on
spinning plates
helping
on
other
sticks
adults say, you know what,
while riding a
this is not
unicycle.
appropriate behavior. You need to establish the right
To
boundaries.
protect pedophiles. What an absolute Ghoul. Soulless ghouls. These two people, ghouls. Satan has devoured their soul. They are a shell. Christ has no use for them.
With these folks, a lot of those crimes of opportunity.
Our girl is losing her shit. I love this.
Rather than have a situation where you have kid after kid after
And then this guy in the back's kind of losing it too. He's laughing.
kid year after year after year being abused in that way.
Okay, by the way, this is how Christina was at every meeting. And this was me next to her with the glasses, trying to be the good JW, being like, we're not supposed to. Meanwhile, Christina is accurately reacting to everything. Honestly, my dad was like this too. My dad could not hide his facial reactions. He occasionally would have to get up and like stand up and walk and get out, which of course was also a bit of a showy display, but I don't know.
Someone is seeing that we have a boundary problem here and we need to do something about this educator. And a lot of the cases that I had were if the educator doesn't.
I was accused of doing this on stage as the Watchtower reader a couple times. There were a couple people in the audience who were like looking to me for like a gym to camera reaction. And so then I had to be like really, really rigid and like keep my eyes directly on the Watchtower so that I did not have any kind of facial reaction. This is just bringing up all kinds of memories of making facial expressions during a crazy talk at the meeting.
Kid year after year after year being abused in that way. Someone is seeing that we have a
I
boundary
know.
problem here. We need to do something about this educator. And a lot of the cases that I have where if the educator doesn't respond to those boundary guidance, that's the educator who has to have their license suspended or revoked because they are not able to maintain proper relationships with children.
Okay, and I would say,
okay,
I hope you're not saying that it's only one space and not the other. In my mind, it's and both. And the more places that we can identify where young people have identified they are being abused or someone is knowledgeable about that, that we don't call out another group of people for not doing the very thing that.
No, what I'm saying is all of this is.
No.
We can't rely on mandatory reporting as the way that we're solving this issue.
No, it's
actually you could.
that we need to do.
And we're happy to have clergy be mandatory reporters, except in that one situation.
Right, and that one situation is what's bringing us back here every single year to talk about what that means and how do we get through that. So
how about stop having so many pedophile priests and then you won't have to come to the Senate every year.
Interested in continuing our conversation because it is a tough one.
I really like
not gonna
this
deny
senator
that
here.
At all. Not going to.
She's like,
deny
surely
that
you are
at
not
all.
suggesting,
Why we're-
madam.
Why we're back and why Senator Frame feels so strongly about this bill, as do so many others, as you heard today. So, Bishop Frank Schuster, nice.
Are you
to see
involved
and
with this,
thanks for
KC
being here
Larson?
today. Would love to give you some time.
Well, thank you.
I'm
First
just
of
sorry I
all,
didn't
just
cover it
wanna
sooner.
begin, by thanking you, Senator Frame, for the courage it took to share your story, as well as those here present. Thank you. It took courage to do that. And
she's looking
my
away
heart's
very
wrenched,
consciously.
with your experience. You know, the church failed you. And my heart just is broken. I walk with victim survivors in my role as a pastor of a parish. In fact, I was a mandatory.
She's trying not to lose it. She's trying not to lose. Nobody has any time for this. This is just the most disgusting position to take. It's like the people who vote to keep child marriage intact. It's like, how do you live your life knowing that you're this kind of person? How do you live your life doing that?
Reporter for a young man who came to me in my parish, and it was a counseling situation.
Yes, look away. It's
he
not.
told me that he was in contact with an adult online, and that he was going to run away, and he was going to go. And it was kind of in tears. He loved him and wanted to, And so after talking to him, I called the police. I brought in the parents, and I think we saved a kid that day.
Wow.
But
he's basically a firefighter.
But I'm with you in terms of the pain.
This is perfect. This is absolutely great. There was I know there's a whole was it a Korean reality show that did this, where there's the reality show happening and there's just like comedians kind of reacting to it. And there was a season of Survivor where they had a couple other past contestants just kind of like sitting in the booth on the sidelines during tribal council, just hamming it up for the cameras. And I was so into it. And this, I really think we need these for all, because there's a lot of Senate hearings happening right now, like all these confirmations. We need to have whoever this is, she needs to be at a lot of them. We need like a designated ham
The pain
just
doesn't go away.
at all
That's not my experience. when I work
Senate
with victim
C-SPAN type
survivors.
events.
The pain stays. And so thank
And
you.
I would like to volunteer
Kind of going
as
off
tribute.
script, but I felt that was important. We have a zero tolerance policy and a safe environment training for clergy, staff, and volunteers. You know, ever since this came to light in a public way, it was shocking for me too, as a priest, new priest, in 2002, and the whole thing in Boston went down. I was angry. I don't know if I can get some
Whoa.
love with some of the time.
Keep going for a second.
Are you allowed to talk about that, or?
It shook me to the core as a young priest.
It shook me to the core, and then I did nothing, and I continued to advocate for our rights to protect pedophiles, because I'm a disgusting, worthless, garbage person. How do you live with
Shocking
yourself?
for me too, as a priest, new priest, in 2002, and the whole thing in Boston went
It
down.
was really hard
I
for
was
me
angry.
too.
I don't know if I can get some love with some of the time.
Keep going for a second.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Get some love with some of the time.
It shook me to the core as a young priest. And in 2002, we were grateful that the bishops passed the Dallas Charter for the
Yes.
protection of youth.
Okay. I thought so. I thought this was the same guy. This is the wrong kind of ham. This guy reminds me of, I'm saying ham in terms of like hamming it up for the camera, by the way. That is the way I'm trying to use that term. Swimming in the river of ham, to use another blank check aphorism, since we're doing that today. Yeah, I know that I couldn't tell if he's just of an archetype or if this is the same exact guy that I've watched at a previous hearing. Was that the one that you testified at, Mitch? This guy's a ghoul.
Young people with a zero tolerance policy and all
No. He has a tolerance policy. The state is trying to adopt a zero tolerance policy. He's like, no. We need a little bit of tolerance for the pedophiles right here in the confession booth. It's very important to this guy. That's what's important to him.
those things that went into place. You know, every priest is trained to be a mandatory reporter. Every employee and volunteer are trained to be mandatory reporters, except the rite of penance. Why this one exception? The rite of penance, as the term rite indicates, is a liturgy. It's an act of worship. It's prayer for us. The seal of confession is essential to the rite.
Wait, is that you? Are you saying this is you? I hope so. You are really doing the ExJW community proud. If that's true. If we can confirm that,
Because
that
a
would be
penitent has the
amazing.
right to
I would
confess
love to
their sins
bestow
without worrying
honor.
for sins
Double
to become
honor.
public. The penalty for
I never understood the double honor concept as a Jehovah's Witness, but today, I think these reactions do deserve double
breaking
honor.
that seal is excommunication. Something even as a bishop, I can't, have any power over. And even the Pope would say he doesn't have power because this is a sacrament that comes from Christ. You see, this is coming from the Lord. This sacrament, and so it's impossible for a priest to comply.
It's
this
from the
illness
Lord.
instant.
Not having to report crimes that are said in this little box is from God. It's just, if it's said in the box context, a pedophile thing, then that is from God, and God says we can't go to the cops about that. That's what this brain genius is saying.
However, preserving the seal of
Senate
confession
hearing?
does not prevent a priest from promoting justice and safety. In fact, confession is an opportunity to tell offenders to turn themselves in as a matter of restitution. Talking to young people who are experiencing abuse.
Whoa, so this is really you? Oh my God, this is exciting. I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity. So you go by Sarah or Sarah Lynn? Faith and Humanity Restored here, reading comments. No, oh my God, this is iconic. This is one of the great things I've seen in my time watching videos. My energy is only subdued because my system is full of Dayquil.
To help identify a safe adult who is a mandatory reporter.
I you know what? I can identify two unsafe adults in this room so easily, and it's the people at the table arguing in favor of more ways to allow crimes to continue to happen.
So to be able to direct in that direction, we believe in the spirit of the bill. We believe in the spirit of the bill and be honored to be partners in rewording it so it does not violate.
Isn't that just like a Catholic priest to believe in the spirit of something, but not the thing?
Our constitutional freedom of religion. So thank you. My heart goes out to you. I know this is
We need gifs of all of this. Watch this reaction right here. I'm going to back it up 5 seconds.
freedom of religion.
What?
So thank you. My heart goes out to you. I know this is a difficult topic. I'm glad.
That was... Hang on a second. That was this. That was this exact, like, sequence of reactions. Was who I think we're learning is Sarah reaction to what was just said here. What in God's name have I done? Come back. So with that meme in mind,
thank you. My heart goes out to you. I know this is a difficult
that's what that reminded me
topic.
of.
I'm glad we're having it. It's important.
I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Thanks for sticking around in case someone's got questions, and I know Senator Frame has one.
Bishop Schuster, the story that you told about the young man you saved, what was the context of that?
Context, he wanted to come talk to me. And so he came into my office and for a counseling situation and shared with me that story. I'm keeping his name, obviously confidential. This was a number of years ago.
And you called the authorities?
I did.
And you recognize that the exact story you're telling, had he told you in confession rather than counseling, you wouldn't be telling that story today. You would not be patting yourself on the back for
Thank
doing that in your
you.
life because you wouldn't have told the authorities.
No, I would.
Oh shit. Oh my God, who is this senator? Who's my new favorite Washington senator? Actually, I don't know. Everybody on this panel, her and the older woman with the glasses. That was amazing. Let's hear that again. Let's get a replay.
The authorities.
I did.
And you recognize that the exact story you're telling, had he told you in confession rather than counseling, you wouldn't be telling that story today. You would not be patting yourself on the back for saving that young man's life because you wouldn't have told the authorities.
No, I would have told him to come meet with me after because there's
No, I knew he switched those numbers.
issues here to unwrap.
I'm not
And once he
crazy.
met with me after, I would have been a mandatory reporter. That's how I would have handled it.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Yes.
Oh, she.
So,
God,
Bishop Schuster, I
the
appreciate
Perry
you being
Mason
here.
moment.
And this feels like a really key moment to talk about the difference between intent versus impact.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I'm sure your intent is good to thank me for sponsoring.
She didn't like him saying, "Yeah, you're good."
I'm sure your intent is good to thank me for sponsoring this bill
It is.
and to thank us for having this conversation and to tell us that we're brave and that the community failed us. You're failing us. This isn't a fun conversation for us.
No, it's not.
Oh, this is incredible.
And every time we have to have this conversation, it's re-traumatizing. And I almost didn't offer the bill this year because I need to have some boundaries. I'm pretty bad at it, as you can tell.
No, you're not bad.
I am.
No, you're not.
It is traumatizing to have colleagues who I love and trust and have
That dude
respect
needs
for
to
in the
shut
legislature tell
up.
me to my face that religious freedom is more important than protecting children. It's informed me as a parent about how I'm going to raise my child.
Sure.
This debate of the last 2 years.
Sure.
It has informed me how I'm going to raise my child. I am a former Catholic. I was a Catholic by choice. I did RCIA in my early 20s, and I'm no longer a member of the church. So it needs to be said that I am sure your intent is good in thanking me and thanking the victims that are here today. But the impact is it feels like an abusive relationship that we are in where we are repeatedly abused and people just keep saying sorry.
Damn. That is powerful. That's good for her. Because it's so true. This fucking, oh, we're so sorry. No, you're not. You're there to ensure that it keeps happening. That's part of this guy's fucking day job. Part of his job is fighting for his right to not report pedophiles to the police as a lobbyist. What a ghoul.
So I just
slime, human
I know your
scum.
intent is good, and I thank you for your good intent, but I think it's important to note what the impact is.
I hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you.
How
All
do
right,
we thread the needle?
Yeah. And I'm
Find a way to thread the
Because
needle. I
there are
like that.
people who are
And I appreciate we
disgusting
did try to thread the
pieces of
needle last
shit
year.
in the world.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that the women that are sitting in the front row told us that that was not enough.
There are people who are gross, disgusting, awful shitbags. And that guy is one of them. Priesty McLyerton, Father Priesty, is a sack of shit. I'm allowed to say that because this is my channel. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a constitutional law expert. And I didn't even know who the Catholic opposition was earlier. But fuck this guy.
An appropriate needle to thread, and we need to protect all victims. So thank you.
We just don't have power over the seal of confession.
Yeah, you fucking
move
do.
on to our next-
You disgusting slime ball. What a piece of shit. Yes, they do. He's just saying that because he's saying it's in the Bible, and I don't have power over what's in the Bible. But it's fucking bullshit because other states have done it. So he knows that he's just clinging on to something that has actually worked out perfectly fine for other places that did have power over it. Oh my god. Put this guy in a fucking bucket in the... What? Where do buckets come from? I couldn't think of anything. Where should this guy go? A bucket. That's where he's going to go. How about go straight to Bucket Town,
we have
sir?
more folks to testify. Want to make sure we're hearing all sides. So we do have Teresa Schremp, who was
Good
in
call.
person but is remote.
All sides.
So I would like to call her forward if she could
Teresa
turn her
Schremp.
camera on and
Hello.
begin to speak.
I think my camera is on, I'm hoping, and then.
There you go. We see you.
Yeah.
Go
Okay,
ahead, Teresa.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Teresa Schremp. I'm from the 43rd District in Seattle, and I oppose this amendment. I have
Uh-oh.
no doubt that every single person attending this hearing is against child abuse and is committed to ending it.
I don't. Teresa, I have doubts because you're there saying this.
However, I oppose this amendment. Confession is no small matter in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church teaches somewhat uniquely among Christian denominations.
This raises the question as to what kind of criminal things has Teresa confessed in the confession booth. She's like, hey, listen, I confessed to Grand Theft Auto, okay? And if that kind of stuff can suddenly be out in the open, I'm going to lose my nice IKEA kitchen.
That if a Catholic fails to confess a serious sin to a priest in confession during the rite of confession, he cannot be forgiven of that sin.
Blessedly, her audio is
Personal
quiet.
remorse or public or private acknowledgement of the sin. The confidentiality rule attendant to the sacrament is so inviolate that a priest who breaks the seal of confession is automatically excommunicated. Over the
What are you even talking about? What are you talking about? Stop protecting pedophiles, you weird Creeps.
Many priests have been martyred rather than break the seal of confession.
Oh, brother. Yeah. What brave
The proposed
martyrs.
amendment constitutes an unconstitutional interference by the state in the spiritual practice of Catholics, prohibited by the Religious Freedom Clause of the First
It really
Amendment
is.
of the United States
It's very
Constitution
sinful.
and by Article 1, Section 11 of the Washington State Constitution. Please, and I want to emphasize this, understand that the privilege that we're talking about here does not apply to all statements made to a priest, only those made during the course of the sacramental process.
Right. Yes.
There are considerations.
Very, very well said. From Anna Identifiable. Oh boy, I don't know if I pronounced your username right. I'm very bad at that. But they said, no, see, we can't change the policy because the current policy is this. Correct. That is exactly the problem. That is, yeah, it's like dealing with the Democratic Party.
Even issues of violent crime. 60 years ago, the United States Supreme
I laugh
Court
and
decided
I
that
weep.
an in-custody confession of a defendant should be excluded at trial if the defendant was not previously advised of his constitutional right to
Well, you
remain
see, we
silent.
can't do that
Something we
because that's
pretty much
not
take for
what we
granted now.
do.
So even though Mr. Miranda confessed to a brutal murder,
Why are they so
Or
obsessed
constitutional
with
rights
this closet? Why do they love this special closet with the wood lattice, little kind of see-through? Oh, you can kind of see the person, kind of not, and there's a little slidey hidey hole. I mean, I understand that it's kind of a cool, complicated contraption that seems like it could be in that movie, The Prestige. It seems like maybe it's kind of a magic box. But, you know, you can do fucking confession over the phone, quite frankly. I feel like you could, that could be an email. This whole religion could have been an email.
against self-incrimination prevailed.
Whoa. I have to pee more than I've ever had to pee in my life, but we're watching important things right now. So but she now is talking about murder.
Take for granted now. So even though Mr. Miranda confessed to a brutal murder, the court held that his constitutional rights against self-incrimination
Oh God, she's like trying to talk about Miranda rights.
prevailed over the state of Arizona's strong interest in obtaining a conviction. So if this bill passes, should priests administer
Get a little closer to your camera, Teresa.
Miranda-type warnings to those going to confession?
We can't see
The
you.
absurd question only arises if the legislature decides to violate the United States state constitution.
Absurd question. Oh, well, glad that person's priorities are in place. You know, it's hard to get people to call into Senate hearings. And then sometimes you're like, but you got to do it. You got to do it because those are the kind of people that will call in if you don't.
Religious practice.
You know, and I wanted to, and I didn't.
Thank you so much.
And my spot presumably was taken by Teresa.
Oh, Senator Christian has a
Joke's
question.
on me.
Thank you for testifying today. I just happened to pull up my Bible app, which I probably use. Not as
Senator
much as I-
Christian. Okay. Well, that's devastating. I really do have to pee. Something fierce. So we'll be right back.
It's interesting. So, planet Earth. Perfect. No. Now, think about it. Maybe we've that puts to or persecute yourself. Very good.
I'll be honest, it makes me laugh to think that I make people sit through that multiple times. Okay. Oh my goodness. You know, don't judge my gulps. No, no. No. Not these days. Not so much these days. Church and state be like this.
I should, to be honest with you, but I do like it. And it talks continuously about confessing our sins, even verse to confess our sins to each other. What I can't find in here is that I have to confess it to a priest. Can you point to anywhere in the Bible that I need to confess my sins to a priest to be forgiven of those sins?
This is so cool. What a cool question. This is the kind of, sorry, my lefty brain worried about the end of the world coming out here, but like this kind of Senate hearing is honestly the kind of Senate hearing that shows why Senate hearings are cool, because this really is like a very open discussion where people are using a lot of different kinds of arguments to make their points, and you can really see which side's argument is stronger. And now here's this guy whipping out his Bible, and he's asking, where in the Bible does it say you have to confess to a priest? That's kind of a ballsy thing to do, to like challenge him on the interpretation of the Bible. And if there was some kind of religious orthodoxy that could not be challenged in the United States, you know, if we lived in some kind of theocracy where there was some sort of definitive interpretation of the Bible, you wouldn't be able to make this kind of argument. Anyway, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that you could whip out the Bible in the Senate. That's pretty sweet.
Thank you.
Well, that sounds more like
I'm very sorry that I think that democracy is cool in concept. I'm just nostalgic for it, I guess.
more like a religious argument. Many other denominations, mainly, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, if you want to quickly respond, because we're running out of time and we have other folks that we need to testify. So very quickly, if you would like to respond, or you could carry this on outside of committee if you'd like.
Am I being asked the question? This is Teresa Shrimp.
Obviously, he was asking the
Okay.
priest.
Well, that's certainly the
Do you
position.
know anywhere in the Bible that it says I have
Oh,
to
okay, I was
confess
wrong.
to a priest
I was wrong.
to be forgiven of my sins?
It's even more
I know
baller
that's
that
the
he's
teaching of
asking
the
just
Catholic
this
Church
lady.
for Catholics. I don't know if it is a specific provision in the Bible. I know that many Protestants and other sects don't agree.
Yeah, it's
with
because you don't
that.
know
I'm in a
anything.
unique position.
It's all made
because
up.
I was married for 43 years to a
So
Protestant.
I'm gonna
Okay.
just close this down just because we've got other folks that need to testify specifically on this bill, and I want to make sure we hear from them. And I am gonna move the timer to 90 seconds to make sure we've got folks. And I know the faces just went down.
I
in
like
the front
her.
row, but that's the way the world works around here. So Sarah
be happy
Young,
to
if you're
discuss
here,
that.
Rachel Fisher and Piper Bolander. Yeah. And Piper is remote, so if you want to pull her up and we will see who is Sarah.
Democracy is cool,
Hi,
guys.
again.
If
Thank
it's
you,
when it's
guys.
about a thing you care about,
I
you
had
just gotta
something I
kind
was
of
gonna
find your
say, and then
in.
I've heard so much, and I feel
Oh my God, it's our friends.
guys. I had something I was going to say, and then I've heard so much, and I feel like I have so much more to say. So the first thing I want to say is there was an interesting thing mentioned about we're teaching boundaries and we're doing the good work. We're teaching boundaries behind
Oh, okay. I saw this clip. We're teaching boundaries.
closed doors. And last time I checked, confession happens behind a closed door. So I wonder how that's being addressed. But I do want to refocus this back on this bill was written with Jehovah's Witnesses in mind, and that's the organization I was raised in. And by nature, we are a very insular community. So my concern is that those of you who oppose this bill probably think, well, clergy don't have to report it in confession, but they have teachers, they have doctors, they have other people in their life. They don't. We don't do sports, we're homeschooled. Frankly, we think all of you are controlled by Satan, and we're not gonna talk to you guys. We won't.
This is amazing. This is so great. Oh my God. Sarah, thank you for doing such a good job. This is such an important point that I don't think I would have thought to bring up, but you're so right. Like, and I don't know about you guys, but I see more and more Jehovah's Witnesses pulling their kids out of schools. I think it's going to be increasingly common, which is really scary when you think about the environment that they already have cultivated.
So if the advice does not come from clergy, if the mandated report is not through our clergy, we're not going to do it. It's not going to happen, and you will be leaving children that happen to be born in this religion and happen to be born in Washington at a disadvantage where they don't even have fundamental rights that every other US citizen has. So I urge you to consider that and to please vote in favor without exemption.
And can you, for the record, state your...
Clap, 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 clap. I don't actually want to clap in the microphone. Verbal clap. Verbal clap has been awarded. That was spectacular. I think that was really, really great. And focusing on how it's an insular community. And what I really liked was it just punishes people who happen to be born into this religion, who just happen to be born in this state. I think a lot of just basic human rights factors boil down to the fact, like, hey, none of us get to choose the fact that we were born at all, right? We're here. We didn't get to choose that. We were born. And we didn't get to choose where or who our parents were. So we should all probably find a way to equalize that for everybody, because some of us are born rich, some of us are born poor, but it's total luck of the draw. So maybe we should even that out, just because it's the one thing we all have in common. And I think when human rights are stripped away, it's because we forget that thing that we have in common. And this point is important because Jehovah's Witnesses kind of insist that, like, even their little kids have chosen the Jehovah's Witness lifestyle. Like, well, that's just, they want to do all this witness stuff. It's the kids' right to do all this witnessy stuff. But it's like they were just born into it. These people were just born into their religion. We understand that. I like this. This is like a very human hearing, which I really like.
Your name?
Sarah Young.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for being here today. Rachel.
Good morning, Madam Chair Wilson and members of the committee, Senator Frame. I thank you for letting me speak. My name is Rachel Fisher, and I'm here to voice my strong support for Bill 5375. I'm a CSA survivor. I was raised as a fourth generation Jehovah's Witness, as I mentioned, homeschooled, isolated from much of society. I witnessed and experienced personally the harm that the policy currently causes. My grandmother's husband, Ernie Fines, abused his daughter. Instead of reporting the crimes, the leadership and his local elders concealed them under internal procedures. The silence emboldened him. And last year he was convicted and sentenced for multiple child sex abuse crimes in Maine. This was not a one-state occurrence. The history of Jehovah's Witnesses demonstrate culture and tradition of secrecy. And their history demonstrates they only change their behavior when forced by law. Teachers, healthcare providers such as myself, and counselors already have the legal responsibility to report abuse. Clergy should be held to the same standard. This bill doesn't infringe on religious freedom. It simply ensures that no one is above the law when it comes to protecting children. And I thank you, Madam Chair, and members for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your testimony. And thank you both for...
That was Rachel. Oh my God, that was amazing. if you are watching this, thank you for that. I mean, it's just, it really puts into stark contrast who's on the other table, or I guess maybe they just shift who's at the table at one time. That's not important. Those fucking slimy Catholics, the priest guy and the sad woman with glasses, their whole existence is like ignoring tears and real stories like that, and just trying to find weird little reasons to try and just deny this basic fundamental safety. It takes such courage to do that. I can't imagine. But man, it makes a difference, and it makes them, it reveals them to be so small, and have just no values. They stand for nothing. No religious leader worth listening to, no priest worth listening to would sit at that table and defend the right to withhold criminal things from the police that could endanger children. Like, that's what they're reduced to when they're confronted with honesty. It is really simple. Like the older woman in that amazing jacket was saying earlier. I didn't catch her name.
Being here today, and I'm going to call it Piper Bollender. If you would put your video on. Thank you.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Go for it.
Okay.
You may begin.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of SB 5375.
Oh, I think I saw a clip of this.
I'm not only here as a former member of Jehovah's Witnesses, but as someone whose loved ones have suffered the devastation caused by organizational structure that prioritizes reputation over the safety of children. I want to corroborate everything that has been said by other former members, and that this problem is not going away without legislative intervention. The church will not change its policies without outside pressure. Global investigations such as the Australian Royal Commission, the UK Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, the University of Utrecht report commissioned by the Dutch government, and other governmental investigations have exposed alarming and persistent patterns in negligence. The Australian Royal Commission found that Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia had internal records of 1,006 alleged abusers, and yet not one single report was made to the police. Even if an abuser is internally disciplined, they remain free to harm children in other settings like schools, sports, healthcare, or at home where abuse continues, sometimes for years without intervention. Without mandatory reporting, there is no mechanism to prevent serial abusers from continuing to prey on the vulnerable. These policies and attitudes have sadly predictable results. Abuse goes unreported, victims suffer in silence, and abusers operate with impunity. This problem is sadly not unique to the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I use them merely to illustrate the issue at hand. This is not an attack on faith or a specific group. It is a recognition that the safety of children must come first. In jurisdictions like Australia that have strengthened mandatory reporting, there is clear evidence of increased accountability and better protection for children. Jehovah's Witness leadership have stated clearly and publicly that they will not bow to outside pressure to change their policies. And these policies have remained in place for years despite the government reports that I have mentioned.
Oh my God. I wanted to listen to the whole thing without interrupting, but oh my God, this is so good. Just everything about this is Piper. Excellent. Everybody is just absolutely like annihilating this. It's so good. Bringing the, bringing the receipts. This is why, like, every one of these cases that happens, just every time any one of these cases comes to light, it's so important because it adds to the receipts. It adds data to the legislators who will then genuinely look into these things. You know, these things can be submitted into record, and then they will look at that and see these patterns of abuse. And what I really like that Piper has mentioned, and that I know Rachel mentioned, and I think they all mentioned it, Sarah as well, that they simply do not change unless the law forces them to. And the irony is it's perfectly illustrated in these like Catholic pedophile apologist committee, or whoever these two weirdos were that showed up, the priest and the sad woman. You know, you can see that's the entire reason why they exist, to just insist that this is from God and it's in the Bible, and we can't possibly change that. So no, we're not going to change it, and we're just going to keep saying no and never ever budging at all. And so we've, like, again, it provides the contrast so well. And just shout out to how well put together this is, because the testimony, like, each elucidates something new. It's not like redundant or anything. Each person is kind of presenting a new element to it. It's just really cool. I'm just really enjoying this. It's so well done.
However, Jehovah's Witness records shows that external legal pressure can indeed prompt
And also the nose piercing is also really well done. It looks rad.
reform. It was only when faced with losing state funding in Norway.
Piper,
Yes.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. And if you've got
Yes.
more of your testimony, please feel free to submit it.
Okay, I'll finish this one sentence. It was only when facing losing state funding in Norway and losing tax exempt status in Australia or major lawsuits in Montana that policies shifted, not out of moral duty, but to mitigate liability. Without legislative action, these policies will continue and persist.
Thanks so much. And I hate to cut you off, but appreciate you being here today. Thanks so much. And with
Thank
that,
you.
we're going to move on to, I see Mitch. Are you there? You may begin.
Hey, Mitch.
Yes, I'm here.
What? That's our boy. That's our boy. No, this is great. I think this is really cool. Because I've been trying not to watch, but I have watched some of the recent, like, Senate confirmation hearings of appointees to the White House, right? And it's not the same thing, but there are similar, like, rules of decorum, and everybody has a certain amount of time. Everybody has a certain thing that they're trying to get across that, you know, maybe somebody else in their party or their caucus is going to bring up this thing in their question to bring it up, like, okay, well, I'll address this. You ask this person about this. I'm going to bring out a big chart. You bring out, I don't know, just your fiery rhetoric. Everybody's kind of playing a part in something that is genuinely an investigation, like a genuine inquiry into what the person's going to say, into what the response is going to be. But it's also a bit of a show in terms of, like, how can we best use this to, like, get the most amount of information out there in a public forum that is visible, that makes our case. I don't know if that makes sense, but, like, even the little mistakes that are made in those, it's kind of the same thing. Like, people are always going overtime on C-SPAN. A Jim Jordan guy can't stick to his schedule.
I'm from Ellensburg, Washington, and I'm speaking today in support of the bill. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I was a ministerial.
Oh, Mitch, I don't mean to undermine this, but I heard that for a second as I was a racist Jehovah's Witness. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
I'm speaking today in support of the bill. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I was a ministerial servant for 10 years. That might be similar to a deacon in other faiths. And there was a lot I was going to say, but so many in the room have said it better than me. So amazing job for those people there in the room. But many in other states are looking to Washington to be a leader in this regard. This bill is critical because these religious organizations in our communities routinely shield these child abusers. And as others have stated, they will not change. In some instances with the Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe half a dozen or more adults will know about an allegation or a confirmation of child abuse. Reports will be made, records kept, a call to their headquarters organization. Sometimes parents will be warned. Sometimes an abuser may face church discipline, but not always. And regardless, the community at large will not be warned. Outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they will not know that there is a danger in their neighborhoods or in their schools or other places. And I just wanted to comment on the example that Bishop gave. If that was a Jehovah's Witness elder that had a young man come to him, he would not report. He would call his legal department and they would tell him not to report. So if you carve out an exemption for the Catholic Church, an institution that is currently obstructing investigations in our state and that is morally bankrupt on this issue, it will be abused by other religious organizations in our communities.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time today.
Whoa. Mic drop moment. Okay, I was jotting down notes and then it started catching on fire because I was writing down words Mitch was saying. Damn, okay, I love that. I love that you called out the obstruction of the Supreme Court. So that was great. I really, really liked your contribution to this because you acknowledged that sometimes Jehovah's Witnesses do the right thing, right? Like sometimes they do communicate with each other and parents will be warned. Like sometimes it'll be reported to police and sometimes sometimes everything goes according to plan, but the rules are not in place to ensure that like the right thing is being done. And because of that, it affects the outside world too, because the abusers don't just exist only within Jehovah's Witnesses. They work a day job. They go to the grocery store. They might have kids in school, whatever. They live in the community. So by trying to keep it all in-house, they can't because those people exist in the real world. But I like that Mitch did that because it's easy to speak in like broad sweeping terms about how Jehovah's Witnesses like never do anything right. And it can be worthwhile to just like neuter Watchtower's arguments by conceding that sometimes they do the right thing, you know? Like, we actually want change. So we can give them that. We can give them that sometimes good things happen, but that doesn't solve the overall problem. Sorry, that was super inarticulate at the end. I'm fired up. I'm fired up about democracy and seeing ExJW heroes team up
was signed up
and do shit with certainly no help from me. I feel really bad. I have not been good at keeping up with all this stuff, partially because I was sick, but even before that, just because I've been distracted and because there's been a lot going on. And it has been a stressful time to be alive. I've been thinking about, should I make a video kind of addressing maybe some of the anxieties that people have? Because I don't know about y'all, but my Armageddon like triggers have been higher. Not in a they might be right kind of way, but just like, oh God, I finally got my freedom, and now it kind of feels like the world is going to end, and I didn't get to enjoy the world that I thought I was going to be inheriting in some way, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that I was going to have freedom in a world that had a certain set of problems, and now it's like, now it has a different set of problems, and now that means I have a different set of problems, and that wasn't really in my little plan when leaving the religion. And so it's been hard to be like informed about anything. Just every keeping up with the news is triggering, so I try and moderate that. And as a result of that, though, like a lot of the CSA stuff in the organization, that can be really triggering too. I've been putting off just uploading a highlight reel that my buddy edited for me and I just need to do some polishing work on it. But it's about blood, so it's triggering. So it's just like everything is kind of a little bit triggering right now, and so I'm really, really jazzed watching this Senate hearing and all the amazing work that you guys did, because it reminds me of what I think is really cool about like organizing and government when it works. Like, I'm in a cheesy way, and there's no shame in it now that it's over, but I always thought that American democracy was really cool and interesting. Like, not that it was a perfect system. I'm a progressive. I believe very strongly that most of our systems are in complete disarray, and were even before Trump 2.0 started. But I liked that kind of American myth a little bit, and I liked the idea of a lot of things in our government, especially the law. I've always been really interested in like constitutional law and stuff in this country. Not that I understand it, mind you, interested. And so, and like secret shameful confession, my goal was like, well, I'm gonna give writing novels and YouTube a 10-year push after leaving the Witnesses. And if I can't make a full-time job out of it, like if I can't sustain myself full-time after 10 years doing that, I will go back to school. Not that I'll stop doing all my creative stuff, but I will go back to school. And my sellout move was going to go to law school, because I have always been really interested in law. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses, you don't think that you have political beliefs when you're a Jehovah's Witness, but then you realize you do, because I'm like, it probably goes back to like To Kill a Mockingbird and Atticus Finch and shit. But honestly, it also is just like fucking the show Better Call Saul. I really like that show. I like that show, and the nerdy meticulousness of the law in that. I'm like, ooh, now I kind of understand how this works as a job more. That's interesting to me. And so I really, like, one of my favorite things to have been doing over the last few years since, you know, gaining my freedom has been just learning everything about like US, like not I'm learning US law, but just like pop books about US court cases and litigations and trials and things, and listening to like podcasts about like the Trump trials and stuff like that, the stolen documents trial and January 6th stuff. It was just interesting to like listen to, and I thought, you know, that would be interesting. Oh, also the main reason I grew up, like one of my gateways into reading was John Grisham legal thrillers. And so I don't know why I'm talking about this. The end of the show, I do a thing where I just kind of ramble. We actually, I'm sorry to say, have a sound drop for this.
You know,
one.
I do the weave. You know what the weave is? I'll talk about like 9 different things, and they all come back brilliantly together. And it's like, and friends of mine that are like English professors, they say, it's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen.
This is where I say the most brilliant things you've ever seen. Sorry, but I've got it at the ready. But I thought about practicing maritime law. I mean, obviously, Cherith Cute Story was a huge inspiration for, and Maggie Leiser. But anyway, the entire reason I was bringing that up was, it was so fascinating over the last, let's say, 6 months, as it became clearer and clearer that Trump had totally gotten away with everything, that the courts had successfully delayed, that Garland had sat on his hands for way too long and like he just didn't move quickly enough, and then he was able to delay, and all of this shit just it wasn't going to matter because it was going to be postponed after the election. And so if Trump won, it really wouldn't matter. And so it was fascinating listening to like legal podcasts that I have listened to since I was a Jehovah's Witness in like 2015, and hearing those people just over the course of years, and especially in a course of like the last few months, realize that their entire expertise no longer means anything. And like I was listening to the Majority Report the other day, they had on their guest was like their head like constitutional law person from The Nation, like that publication. And the guy was like basically like, nothing I know is helpful anymore. The rules that I know as a constitutional law expert or whatever the fuck this guy was, like it doesn't matter anymore because the rules don't apply. And so like that's been kind of the existential thing in my brain that's been driving me crazy. And that's made it a little bit hard for me to like get back into the swing of things after intentionally taking a little bit of a break after Christmas, like with the New Year and stuff, and then accidentally taking more of a break because I've been sick. Like everything that I've wanted to do and like all the dreams that I've had, it feels like that there's a world where that slips away because it does feel like in a very material sense on a day-to-day basis, things are deteriorating. And it's way easier to tear something down than it is to build something up. It took fucking 250 years to get to where we are now. It doesn't take that long to just take a sledgehammer to it. Building a house versus demolishing a house, for example. Not true, but like I also, that gives me this new cognitive dissonance because my whole thing since waking up is I feel way more optimistic than I ever did as a witness. I don't feel as apocalyptic and doom and gloom as I did as a Jehovah's Witness. But also some days the like apocalyptic doom and gloom feels like very tangible and real as I think about the fact that like Christina's in school for a profession that is under threat, and because all colleges and schools are now under threat, like funding grants and shit can just be cut off because of an executive order that you just hear about randomly and you're like, what? There's just not going to be air traffic control. What? That's illegal now? What? They're doing raids now? What? Like, you can't keep up with it. And, like, I have legitimately no idea if any of the things that, like, institutionally I thought I might be able to do will exist. I don't say that to be in a doom and gloom way, just, like, in a practical way of, like, well, shit, I don't know if YouTube will exist then in a year. I don't know. Videos and people wanting to watch funny shit on the internet, that will always exist, I'm assuming. And like, I like to write. People are not going to stop reading. And in fact, sometimes I have found this kind of invigorating because I'm like, well, shit, nobody knows what's going on. There are kind of no rules anymore. So maybe this thing that this novel that I wasn't able to get published because the market wasn't quite right for it. Well, what if I kind of try and do something unique with it? Because I don't know what the fuck the publishing industry is going to be like. They don't know what they want anymore. Books are being banned, So I just have all of these weird new concerns now that I didn't have just a matter of weeks ago. So that's been an added element to everyday life now, is just tomorrow it could all look so different. Like tomorrow, I don't know. But that's been liberating in a way too, because it does make me feel much more focused on what am I doing day to day, making plans that are actionable, that are like kind of structured in terms of like what's needed right now. Like for us, passports needed right now. So that's number one. I didn't know that that was a number one need in my life before. That was just one of a list of chores. And now it's like, okay, that's the next thing. That's the next big thing we got to do. But at the same time, I was also thinking the first Trump administration, I was also very stressed and anxious all the time because it was the element that it had, there wasn't as much teeth behind his early executive order. But it had the same element of chaos and him doing stuff and being like, wait, what is that legal? What? Did he kind of threaten war off of Twitter? Wait a minute, is he like making money off of his brand in the White House? Aren't you totally not allowed to do that? What the fuck? Like, there was just chaos and crazy shit happening all the time. But that is honestly like some of the happiest times of my life. Like that's when me and Christina met and dated and were newlyweds, and when I had a podcast with my friends that was like some of the most fun I ever had. And when I think back on that time in my life now, when I like scroll through my photos in my phone or social media and see Facebook memories, I don't think of all the shit. I don't think of all the crazy shit. In the abstract, maybe, but it's not like life stopped. It's not like good things in my life stopped happening. It's not like bad things stopped happening. Awful things happened too. I was also like in the hospital and shit, but also good things happened. And also things, happened around the world that had nothing to do with me. But that's kind of what I've been trying to think about is just, I don't know, even COVID, which was really scary and weird. And like from one day to the next, you didn't know what was going on. Like I had some good fucking times during COVID. We had some good times during COVID. Also some shitty times. Also scary sometimes and really uncertain. But I don't know, like you never stop finding ways to laugh and have fun and goof around and listen to songs that make you happy and eat sweet potato pie. My mother's sweet potato pie. So yeah, I don't know. I've been feeling kind of equal parts liberated and terrified by all this constant change. It's all very scary. But here's what else I will say. Yeah, find your joy and focus on that. Never stop, never stopping. That's, first of all, one of the great comedies of recent years. And it's also a funny phrase I say all the time. Never stop, never stopping is just so good. We do always have Mad Men, which got me through so many things. Like, I mean, let's be real. The first Trump administration gave us some really fucking good movies. It gave us Chernobyl and HBO's Watchmen, two of the great miniseries ever made. I was trying to wrap up that weird Mark Maron-esque monologue that was going on. I was trying to wrap that up in some way, but I didn't really get there, and that just doesn't always happen. Thank you. Jenny B seems to be implying that I should end the stream instead of rambling on indefinitely. Well, you're wrong because I am going to talk more. I'm going to talk a little bit more, but just about channel stuff, just because I haven't streamed in a while or talked about this stuff in a while. Well, first of all, as a quick reminder, we've got merchandise now.
These clothes are designed to sexually excite both men and women.
And that's the merchandise sound drop. And they are. I ordered one of each design, and I've been wearing them around, and honestly, they look super cool. And hopefully, trying to expand that. I've really been enjoying just kind of doodling little guys, and anyway, I've got a lot of plans vis-a-vis novels and shit. I know I'm always talking about that, but I've been continuing to work apace on Not a Cult. I know I haven't had any updates on that front, but I think it's fucking good. It's so creepy and fucked up in ways I didn't see coming. But I'm a pretty self-depreciating person, and I don't like most of anything that I do on this channel. To be honest with you, I don't like most of the videos I make. Most of them are complete dog shit. And I'd sooner feed them to the dogs than let my wife watch one of my videos. I don't know what any of that meant. Ignore that. What I'm saying is I'm really, really proud of Not a Cult. It's turning out really cool and fucked up, but it's also like very personally important to me now because it's like a vaguely autobiographical thing I'm pouring all of my trauma into. I'm having a really good time writing that. That is a thing that's happening, and I'm kind of trying to balance that with a novel for kids that I think is mainstream that I can pitch to literary agents. That's coming along nicely as well. And then I've got a project that I'm going to be working on with my friend Bart Brown, who designed the channel logo, the devil guy. And he's my best friend. We collaborate on stuff. And we're hoping to finally kind of show our work a little bit in terms of being artistic collaborators. So I'm trying to kind of focus on that stuff because it's all very fun and not triggering and overwhelming. But I'm also really trying to take my day job more seriously just because, I don't know, it's easy not to. Gotta focus on all that shit. It's easy, I don't know, like it's easy to get out of balance on any one thing in life. It's like, okay, I was doing better about therapy, but now I need to do better at filling out my fucking reports every month. One thing at a time. But yeah, videos, I'm just trying to take my time, but I honestly do feel a little overwhelmed in the amount of stuff that I have banked that I have to edit and get through. Like, I've got so many videos recorded that I just have to edit, but it's a lot, and my ADHD brain likes just the new shiny object. And in my brain, because I recorded something, I already made that video. I don't need to address that topic again, even though I didn't make it, because you haven't seen it. So there's like hours of videos that I need to finish up. Be patient. I think the next thing I'm going to be releasing is a high effort stream highlight on kind of everything wrong with the blood transfusion stuff the group does. So not the not the most fun video, but hey, if you want a fun video, check out the silly one that I released about Sam.
Mommy, when I get out, call me Sammy.
Sam Hurd of Mommy fame. And maybe we can go out with a little bit more Sam Hurd Mommy. Let's get some Sam Hurd Mommy. Wait, let's see. Okay, yeah. Check out this insane fever dream here. And like and subscribe and all that stuff, by the way. It means a lot. And what a fun chat. Holy shit, before we go, what an amazing... Maybe put some of it out unedited. Having people who were at that hearing in the chat, amazing. Thank you so much for like giving us your time. It was so fun to react along with you, and genuinely thank you so much for your hard work and your bravery and your testimony, because that seems like it would be really scary and intimidating. Doing this, I find easy. When I do anything that is like, I have to call my congressman or some shit, or I had to do just anything that's a little outside my comfort zone, but that kind of reminds me of witnessy things. It's so hard. So thanks for all that stuff. And now for a totally undignified and ridiculous edit. And now your chairman
died. Well, he was the sole surviving apostle. The last died. You remember that the apostle John died. Well, he was the sole surviving apostle. The last restraint against apostasy. So after John passed off the scene, it was not long before something happened. What was it? What happened when John died?
Well, the last restraint against apostasy.
The last restraint against apostasy.
He was the last restraint.
And now he's gone. Now, why mention those sad stories? Now, here's the